Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming to our very first sharing session for this school year, I guess. Not for this year, but this school year. As teachers, we kind of just think of this as being the new year. But Tenley, thank you so much for coming today and giving us a presentation about composers and kids. I know that you just did one in Manitoba, so I'm hoping that we hear some details about that and just what this is all about because I know that I don't know a lot about this program, so I'm pretty pumped about this.
Thank you, Lois. Hi, everyone. My name is Tenley Dick, and I'd like to share information today about the Northern Lights Composers and Kids program. You can see that this event is so much fun. This was a picture of an event with Deborah Wanless in, I think, about 2015. And when I look at this picture, I see joy. You can see how much fun the kids are having, but not just the kids, also the composer. This is a CNCM program that promotes Canadian music and Canadian composers. Here's a picture of Andrew Harbridge with the kids, with one of the kids in 2012. In this program, CNCM partners with private studios and music organizations to bring Canadian composers to piano students in their own community, for real. Students, teachers, families, and composers all come together to connect and share Canadian music in a relaxed and inspired setting. So this picture just makes me smile. You can just see how much fun they're having. This is Karen Rowell in about 2014. So I do want to clarify that all the pictures that I'm showing today are from our C&K events because those are the specific ones that I can speak to. This is a program available to any studio or organization across Canada. Students and teachers from any conservatory or school or no conservatory. It really is open to everyone. It's serious or recreational musicians or a combination, any age or level of study, including adults. And yes, we've had adults in the program who have enjoyed it as much as the kids have. And teachers are also welcome to perform. We even soldiered through COVID. This is West Froze in 2021. It was actually, I think, 2 years of masking. In 2020, Julianne Workington was here, also the same deal. And of course, we were following all the health regulations. We all knew the drills by this time, distancing, not just on stage, but also in the audience for families, masks, sanitizing, hands, piano keys, all of it. But we even went through COVID. So students are going to benefit the most in this program by performing a work by the visiting composer. And that can be from any source, anything, any place where that composer has music available. Alternately, students may perform any work from any of the CNCM collections, and that would include all of the Northern Lights books, the Making Tracks, the 2 volumes of folk songs, the O Canada collection, the newly launched Seasons series, and there are a couple of sheet music pieces available as well as an online download. Here, Janet Geek is having fun with the kids. This is just 2 years ago, 2023. So to explain, in our little rural community, We ran the pilot C&K event for CNCM in 2006. It was an instant hit and became an annual event. In fact, we have just celebrated our 20th Composers and Kids event last month. The benefits of hosting this fun event is that it's a relaxed, informal setting. No critique, no evaluations, no comparisons, and no competition. Memory is not required. It's just a matter of performing and sharing compositional ideas with our amazing Canadian writers. The composer provides the backstory or inspiration for each piece, which is not only interesting, but it can have a profound effect on students' future performances. And not just the student that's on the bench with the composer in that moment, but also those kids that are sitting on stage waiting for their turn. Inspirational musical memories are created in a comfortable educational setting. And it's just a really fun way of bringing families together through Canadian music stories and ideas. 9-year-old me could never, pardon me, conceive even playing a piece by a Canadian composer who was still living. I might have been exposed to maybe Dmitri Kabalevsky, but he was from Russia, possibly Boris Berlin, but there was no Googling these composers at that point, and it wasn't something that teachers would stress. And so the thought of meeting a live composer was so far from my purview. If you would have told me then that my future students of all ages would not only learn Canadian compositions, but have the opportunity to meet and play for the composer, I would not have believed you. In fact, students now ask, who will be my next composer? Immediately following this year's event. This is their new normal. Fun story about this picture. This was Martha Hill Duncan, I think in 2017. She was actually back here last month for our 20th. But I wanted to show you this picture because this young man played her piece called Rock, Paper, Scissors. And after he played, they were in conversation, and she said to him, do you know what rock, paper, scissors is? And he said, yes. He says, well, it's a game. And all the kids on stage, yeah, it's a game. And she looked at them and she said, it's a game. She'd heard the phrase and called the piece Rock, Paper, Scissors, but wasn't familiar with the game. So this young man taught her how to play rock, paper, scissors, and the whole group had so much fun with this. You never know where these things are going to go. How to request a CNCM Composers and Kids event in your community. Determine the best time of the year for you to host this event. Allow a minimum of 12 weeks for all the planning. So for us, we have this event in October every year. It's a great start to the academic year with like zero pressure or performance anxiety. So that's a really nice way to start the year for the kids. It's also our own nod here to Canada Music Week, which we all know is later in November, but we can have challenging weather issues in this part of the country, which impacts travel, and that's a big part of the budget. So we do this in October, but I do find that it really reduces performance anxiety actually for the whole year when the first event of the year is so laid back. Do select several possible dates for your CNK event, and then select two or three different possible composers from the CNCM publications as your visiting composer. And then just contact CNCM to get the ball rolling. When you're choosing a composer, keep in mind the grade levels of the participating students. If you expect that most of your participants are going to be in the beginner to grade 4-ish range, maybe don't ask for a composer who writes primarily intermediate and advanced music. So try and tailor it to the group that you're going to be dealing with. And when we say from choosing from CNCM publications, that means from, even if there's only one or two pieces in by that composer in the CNCM publications, they may have other sources for their music. CNCM has published over 1,000 pieces and somewhere in the vicinity of 200 composers. So there's lots of options there. Plan a budget for advertising, venue costs, local accommodations, meals, and travel for the visiting composer. And then just contact CNCM. There's the email to get started. Each composer brings their own unique flavor to this event. I wanted to show you one of the ideas. Wes Froese likes to have his guitar there, and after the student has played the piece initially, he might say, do you want to do it again or part of it again with guitar? And of course, that's great fun for them. Some composers will have another keyboard right beside this piano, the acoustic, and you know, play along with bells and whistles, or maybe even do a duet with them on the bench. Lots of different options, and many, everybody brings their own touch to it. CNCM will arrange with the visiting composer all the necessary details regarding your event, and they'll work with you on your budget and provide direction for fundraising within your community. They do provide certificates and composer photos for each participating student, and these will be autographed by the composer, and it's just a really nice keepsake and a reminder of the day. They will also assist with the format of your CNK event and promote it on the CNCM website and social media. We had a lot of fun when Beth Hamilton and Jen Smith-Lanthier came in 2019. They also brought a poster-sized picture of the publicity, the promo ad, and that was very fun because they asked all of the kids to sign this poster, and so each group did the signing. And another fun thing that they did, for those of you who are familiar with their works, the Voyager series, each of those collections, and it's a progressive series, each of those collections has a piece in it representing each of our Canadian provinces and territories. And so they brought pictures, I think calendar-sized pictures. Some of them were actual paper pictures, and some were on an iPad, but pictures pertaining to the pieces that the kids had chosen of those geographical locations. And that was very interesting. And then there were stories to go with that, and kids, and even in some cases families, jumped in with their stories of those locations. So lots of fun ways that this can play out. And having said that, teachers determined the appropriate format for their event. It can take on whatever shape you like. It can be master classes, it can be one-on-one interaction, cabaret style. It can be a composition workshop style. And depending on the composer, you may even want to include a session for vocal music. Um, we've had Nancy Telfer, Martha Hill Duncan, both have written vocal music or strings. I think we had strings performance for Nancy Telfer when she was here, or even ensembles and duets, whether it's a whole session or just maybe one or two of those performances at the end of a session. It's all dependent on the composer and what their output is. The hosting studio organization organizes the event with their community, reserving the venue and advertising and fundraising, planning for meals. The cost will vary depending on travel, composer fees, and accommodations. So it depends whether you're going to be talking about a composer within driving distance or air travel. Some composers may not be comfortable traveling across Canada by air, but they might do um, an event within driving distance. So it's always good to reach out to CNCM with your choices, and then you can work from there. The funds may be raised through sponsorships, grants, registration fees. Um, Teachers can partner with other communities to help with the costs if you want to get together. That's a really fun way to do it. Um, Students can collect sponsors, or sometimes teachers seek out corporate or individual sponsors. You might have benefactors. There's lots of options there. This was Carolyn Garitano and Carrie Puckfrin, who were both in St. Albert at the time. I think this is back to about 2016. I have to say that every single composer who has come here over these 20 years has been amazing. The experiences for the students are almost beyond description. It's just an event that is highly anticipated here. One of the things, Carolyn and Carrie, for those who are familiar with them, um, have a lot of games that they've actually produced, and they've played some of these games when they came for composers and kids, and the kids had so much fun. I think there was a treasure chest kind of thing, and so everybody has a different flavor that they bring to the event, but they've all been amazing. There literally have not been complaints. It's just been so much fun. So we can open this up to questions if you like, if you have questions or comments, maybe about your own. Anytime you can reach out to CNCM about questions about the program. And remember that this is open to anyone. This does not have to be, this is not a program just for CNCM teachers, and your students don't need to be taking CNCM exams. It's for anyone who wants to host this. It's so motivational and inspiring, and it promotes our amazing Canadian composers in a really fun way for the kids, but also for the composers. So if you have questions or comments, I'd love to hear them.
That was great, Tenley. Thank you. I'm going to kick off the questions with I'm going to start with you had talked about going through any of the CNCM publications and seeing if any of those composers would be available. So just to clarify for that, um, you can any of those composers would be willing to do something like this, or is there a kind of a specific list that we can choose from, or that would be just something that you contact the office about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably best to contact the office. If it's a lesser known composer and you're not sure about the musical output, definitely contact the office and maybe have several more names like rather than two or three, maybe three or four or five, just so that you have options. Because yes, there are composers in our collections that only have one or two pieces in our collections. But maybe also do some Googling to see if they have other material and at what levels.
Okay, and then would the office be contacting the composers to set this up? Like you just kind of give the dates and everything, and then the office takes care of that kind of side of
Yeah,
things?
yeah, exactly like that. Like let them know what your preferences are for time of year, like dates, specific dates, because obviously travel will be involved. And then to have a list of composers in order of what the preference would be. And then, I mean, the CNCM won't go directly to the composer. Well, they would start with the first composer, obviously, and then they won't be moving through until they talk to the host teachers. You know, this is what's happened with this one, and do you still want to go ahead with this one next, or whatever the conditions might be.
Okay. And then once you have the composer plan, the date, and everything, is the teacher or the hosting organization put in contact with the composer to say what kind of format you would like? Because you had said that it could really be anything, like it could be a masterclass type, a one-on-one type. Can you just kind of tell me a little bit more about those different formats, like how that would be different, or do you ask the composer what you want, or do they kind of come and just do their thing?
Oh, I think you want to set that up ahead of time. Like they need to know what they're coming to. So I think if you have a preference in mind, I would share that with CNCM because obviously the composer would have to agree to that, right? Like if you want something that's a composition workshop and the composer is like, well, I don't know if I'm not comfortable with it. Like you want to set that up ahead of time. So CNCM would ask those questions for you in advance so that by the time you are connected with that composer, you have an idea. And then you can work out the details. Like ours has always been a one-on-one interaction because it does feel to the kids like this is a piano celebrity coming to town, right? And when they're on the bench looking face to face with this composer, some of them are just really awestruck. It's like, I can't believe I'm playing this piece for Nancy Telfer, right? And there she is, right here, talking to me. And so that interaction we find just brings so much to the event. But that's what we do. I wouldn't dictate that to anybody else. Like I know some have had composition workshops and different ways of doing things. We work this a session is anywhere from 8 to 12 kids. So
Okay.
that would be around a 1 hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes allowed for that time for autographs and all of that. But that's one kid on the bench at a time and having their time with the composer, and the others are on stage in sort of a semicircle. And the composer includes them. Like you saw the picture with Janet Geek. They were marching around. One was replaying their piece the second time. Oh, this would be fun to do this too. We've had, train things and all over the place. And they've had Andrew Harbage had them looking inside the piano and the grand piano, listening for this and watching for that, and all kinds of different things that they do, but that involves the entire group that's on stage.
Okay. And then what is the composition workshop? Is that the student would write their own composition and bring it to the composer? You mentioned the composition workshop style a couple of times, so just clarifying about that.
Okay, I can't speak specifically to that because we haven't done that one, but I know that there are some studios, some teachers that have done that. I believe the kids at least have started writing a composition. Whether they're completed or not, you'd have to check with the office and they would talk to people who have done that type of event. I think it is, yes, that composer helping each of the students with compositional ideas. And maybe some of them haven't started something. I'm not sure just exactly how. I think composers are pretty open to working with any level of whether they just have a one measure idea or whether they have the whole thing already in their minds. Um, And whether that's at the piano or whether they're going to be sitting at little tables or whatever they're going to do, I think those kinds of details can be hammered out with the composer and whatever the teacher's preferences are.
That's very cool. And when you had your composers and kids, did you have just one session or did you have a couple of sessions with different groups of kids in one day?
Oh, it's always like to have an event like this, you want to have several sessions. Now, if you don't have that many, you can talk to CNCM about, whatever kind of arrangement. But we have usually 5 sessions, like 4 or 5 sessions is considered um, a full docket for a C&K event. So we will have 4 or 5 sessions. So on a weekend, we'll run either all of them on a Saturday, morning and afternoon. Sometimes we have a Friday evening session for those who are committed on Saturday, and the rest of them on Saturday. But it's 4 or 5 sessions. Yeah,
So then you
typically
could,
back to back.
oh wow, that sounds like a crazy day, but also really awesome.
It is really
Um,
awesome.
so then you could actually maybe even if some students didn't want to perform, you could have like one of them being the composition workshop and then the other ones uh being a more performance-based workshop and kind of mix and match a little bit that way if you want to go to that level of work.
Yeah.
You have thoughts
Just
about that.
can you say that again, Lois?
Yeah, of course. So I was just thinking that maybe some kids wouldn't want to perform, right? Or maybe they want to perform, but they're also into composing. So it might be cool for them to have the option of doing a session where you do more the one-on-one style that you were talking about that you do with your kids. And then also having a session where you do more the composition workshop, which I see that we have a message from Debbie
Yes. Yes.
saying that the composition workshop she's done is everyone starting from scratch on the day of. Um,
And
and
I
she
think
says,
that's maybe what some people would like to do rather than the kids preparing something. The composer helps them get started with ideas.
mhm,
I saw
mhm,
that here too. When you say kids that won't perform, I don't think they're likely going to get sponsorships and learn a piece by that composer and then not play it. And I do shine away from the word perform. We don't talk about this in my studio as a performance. This is, you're going to get to play this piece for the composer. And the
right,
composer is, because we want to get away from all that performance anxiety. Now, everybody can do this the way they want. Here, we want it to be a very casual, relaxed setting, and it
yeah.
works. Obviously, it works for us. I mean, we're year 20. So um, I haven't seen it happen that kids won't perform because they're pretty excited. Deborah's also saying she's done a combination C&K with composition workshops followed by recital of her pieces. Yes, so any combinations will work. And Deborah's done a number of these in different locations, so she could probably speak to that too. But I mean, that's in the chat. So um, there are many combinations that you can do. Like I say, you can have 3 sessions of piano music. You can have one of duets and ensembles. You can have maybe a session where teachers play. We did that one year. I think we did that with Nancy Telfer. Like there's a number of teachers here. We range from anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 teachers that participate. And the one year we all wanted to play something by Nancy Telfer for Nancy Telfer. So we did. Like it's there's many options.
So really, when we're saying that you can choose the format that you want, you really can just personalize it for whatever your heart desires, to be able
Absolutely.
to do with this composer. That's so cool. Okay.
Yeah, like you can see what Deborah's already done. Like just in the chat, she's done different combinations of, and she's been
Hmm.
here a couple of times too, doing it, the way we do it. But lots of options and lots of things that work. So, I mean, that's something. And maybe if the teachers aren't sure, if it's your first time and you're contacting the office, you can say that we're not sure what format we want to take. These are the composers that, are our choices. And then just start the conversation. Like it just may grow from there.
That's very cool. Um, So you had mentioned, kind of going away from the format, you had mentioned that you kind of need to plan a budget for this event, and you can maybe do different things to help fund this. What do you recommend doing this to keep the costs affordable and not too expensive for everyone involved, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I know teachers who who will cover this, not by their own, but the teachers find the sponsors so that the students don't have to pay anything, or they might do it for certain ones. What we do here is we find the commitment level is higher here, at least, if there's an input, you know. So the students are given sponsorship sheets like the way they would for the Terry Fox run or something like that. And they find sponsors. We do have a minimum, like we'll give them a minimum, and we do try to keep that down for sure, um, so that they can go and do some fundraising. And we have some that really go at it for fundraising, and so we've decided to have prizes. So we will give them prizes, book prizes for the top fundraisers, and that's really fun. Um, in many communities, there are foundations that you can apply to for grants, and we have done that too. And that really helps us to keep that minimum fee for the kids. I shouldn't say fee, but it's sort of a minimum sponsor amount to participate. And we find that locks in the commitment. Like then parents will put it on the calendar and make sure the kids are going to show up, and because you don't want to go through all of this, bring in a composer from wherever and then have a bunch of no shows. So I guess each teacher is going to know what's going to work in their area.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you could really then, depending on how much fundraising you do or how many grants you get, that would kind of open the doors to maybe even more composers like flying here in Ontario, like having one from out west come in and uh yeah. Wow, you're
Yeah.
really good at selling this, Tenley.
Well, it's just been so much fun. I think you can see that. Just those are just a smattering of pictures that I showed you. I have
Hmm.
many more. Like there's so many memorable memories for the kids, for all of us from this event. We've had composers from Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Um, and yes, we did more flying in from Ontario, Alberta, and whatever before COVID. We all know travel's just gone crazy after COVID, but you sort of start building that up again. And like I say, we have the foundation that we apply to for the grant. It it certainly compounds things if you have two composers at once, sort of thing, right? So, but shared accommodation and all of that type of thing. It's just mainly the travel, but when composers compose together, that was really fun bringing Carolyn and Carrie and Beth and Jan, so again, there's just so many options. And if it's a concern, like now post COVID, it's just been one at a time. But I shouldn't say just, because that's kind of the program. It doesn't matter. Like they just have so much fun together. And it's really fun for the composers too, because so many of them have said to us, we write in a vacuum. We write for children, right? Across Canada, students, but you don't know who's playing your pieces or if anybody's playing your pieces. And so when they come and hear, 30, 40, 50 performances of their own works, that's their own level of starstruck, I think, like a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Like it's just good for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for composers, but that's what some of them have said to me. I don't know if there's anything in the chats. Maybe composers can speak to that, but they seem to enjoy it a lot.
Well, it's even organizing the mini Sizzler and everything here in Ontario. Like you do see that the composers are just so pumped to be there and to meet the faces that are playing their compositions. And yeah, from having gone through events similar to Composers and Kids as a um not a performer, as someone playing for the composer, that is just a magical experience, and it's
Yeah,
so inspiring. Like it does, I think it's a cool idea that you're doing it at the beginning of the year, because I can see how that would just kind of fuel your dedication and your motivation to
yeah,
continue the year.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be at grade level, like because we have it like, 6 weeks into the year, nobody cares what grade level you're playing, right? And what we do, I should have mentioned this, we combine the younger levels with the older students in a session. We don't have, okay, this session is beginners, this one is grade 7 and 8. We mix everything together because that's really good for the younger ones and for the older ones, or more advanced ones, I should say. And to be able to hear each other's music and
Hmm.
where they're at, it all makes it, for such a positive experience. And having it that early, because there's such a mix, nobody cares what grade level it is. There's no memorizing involved. Like, I mean, they can memorize if they want, but they don't have to. And it's just such a great way to kick off.
That
Okay, there
makes
we
a
have
lot
it
of
from
sense.
Deborah. Composers love hearing their music played by the students they write for. That's what we keep hearing. Thanks, Deborah. Um, and she's not the only one that has said that. So it's pretty cool for them to hear their own works.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
um Okay, I think that is all of the questions I had. Um, I don't know if there's any other questions from anyone that's here today, or any comments from anyone that has had any experience with Composers and Kids event in their community. I
Well,
hear,
I had
yeah.
one a number of years ago, before my studio got smaller, and it was actually Robert Bruce that I had, but the kids loved it. They were all just invigorated and excited to keep going and wanted to learn more of his music. So it was very positive, and the parents appreciated that too. So.
Mhm. Thanks, Noreen.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tenley, for this today. I kind of want to go out and start planning my own Composers and Kids. And now it sounds really great for everyone involved. Um, and for our next sharing session, we're going to have one in December. I want to say December 4th or 5th, but I would need to double check that. Oh, 4th. We are going to, Tenley and I are going to be sharing about our new season's publication. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be sharing little snippets of pieces and just kind of highlighting some composers. So it's going to be a really fun time and really appropriate timing right after Canada Music Week. So be sure to come back to hear about that.